Hi, I'm Peter Boyles. Welcome to another episode of The Shoot. This, of course, began almost 2 years ago. Really thanks to Mark Crowley, who does all the hard work, and Kelly Michaels, who gives it the okay. This one is special, and it's near and dear to my heart. And it's a radio team of two young men who have really begun to succeed in the radio business in a team. Probably the toughest way to do radio is to team up and do radio. I myself was in a team with the incredible Bob Lee. I teamed for crossover with Alan Berg, but I was thinking of those legendary teams in Denver radio: Hal and Charlie, Lewis and Floorwax, Stephen B. and the Hawk, myself and Bob Lee, your dad, the Jim and Woody show, and the list went on. But it was more than that. When KOA would have 5 and 6 people doing a morning news show that had tremendous ratings, and now more and more, and actually watch sports shows. And sports shows seems to be the one place where teams seem to succeed, but you can see a lot of weeding and seeding taking place on sports shows, where one day it's fill in the blank and Mike, and the next day it's just Mike, and then we get a new fill in the blank. So this is a tough one, fellas, and welcome. Billy Thorpe is, like I said, I would tell people I raised him from a pup.
Oh, you did.
We were trying to figure out how many years we were together, close to 20.
Yeah, close to 20.
And Jeff Hunt and his dad and I were really good friends back in, I always call it the nightmare years of radio. And occasionally, I think, and I'm trying to remember this, I was thinking about it last night, you must have been 9 or 10.
Oh, it was before that. No, he was full on into the ad agency when I was growing up. So
he did both. When
you were starting.
Jim and Woody would come in and do radio, but then they had Pillow Kingdom.
Yep.
And World of, it was Pillow Kingdom and
they did
Big Sur.
Yep.
Oh, Big Sur.
Waterbed.
Yes. Oh God, yeah.
Kids
Big
beds,
Sur.
Denver
Yes.
mattress, all those photos.
Oh, I can see those ads.
They would hire Bob and myself to do the ads.
Yeah.
Well, that was a whole fun day, like you're going out to shoot, and we got there at 11 in the morning, and it was, I don't know, oftentimes 11 at night, and but we were with Jim and Woody. So teams in Denver are legendary. Now, when Brockler left, how did it come together for you two to come and do the job?
Bill?
Ooh, that's a strange one. The best answer is Taylor Swift. It's her fault. And
she made the call.
Yes, exactly. She did. It sounds strange, but when George was off one day, Jeff's filling in. And he comes to the table with the subject about Taylor Swift, where her bodyguard had recently gone back to Israel to reportedly join the IDF to fight in the conflict. And we have a conversation about whether or not Taylor Swift should come out and take a position on that conflict. And to say it got lively is an understatement. Yeah. But almost to a T, everybody that worked at the radio station came in and said, wow, okay. And we heard from callers, we heard from emails and a bunch of others. And when the opportunity to fill the morning show existed, my understanding is there was a conversation that happened and said, okay, of all the people that we have, someone said, what about what we heard there? And they had other examples of Jeff filling in.
Brockler was leaving at that point?
I did. I knew well before anybody else, but that's just because of our relationship. And the only other people that I had told in the entire world were my wife and my mother. That was it. It was, I don't tell anybody else because it was an important thing for him. So, yeah.
And Jeff, you didn't know that Brockler was leaving?
No, not at all. I filled in a few times for George, and we had a good rapport. Kelly Michaels, the operations manager here, asked me, would you consider doing a show with Bill, and can we elevate Bill to be a bigger voice in the program? And I said, that sounds great. One is I enjoy conversation with people that don't agree with me on everything. It's fun and it's interesting. But here's the most important thing about our relationship. Bill's a nice guy. He's a fun guy to be around, right? Like, you can disagree with somebody, and if they're not fun and they're not nice and they're not interesting, it's not going to go anywhere. So the foundation that makes this work is I think we both just like each other.
Oh, yeah.
So it works that way.
It's, I've recommended this book to many people, Bud and Lou.
I just got it. It arrived on Monday. Yes, I'm on page 15. Yes,
Tommy
yes,
Thomas's
yes.
book about, and I wish I'd have read it when I was in a team with Bob. And I've recommended it, for instance, to Rick Lewis and to you guys when I heard you guys were going to team. And what Tommy Thompson does is why teams work and why they don't work. And he points out Bud and Lou, terrible. Dean and Jerry, we talked about that before the cameras ran. But then the Stooges, Laurel and Hardy, why did they work and why did these other teams not work? And it's a blueprint.
It really is.
And because what you're going to do, and I've said this to you, you guys have to hold the line at this radio station.
No pressure.
No, absolutely. But, this is not saying the last ditch, but the weight is on you guys right now. And so when you realize that, you both do know that, and you've moved away from some other careers that you had that were doing great, and now you're in a lifeboat.
Oh yeah.
You joined in, and it's very, very, very hard. Believe me when I tell you, it's hard. And
many people don't understand how hard it is behind that microphone. And Jeff and I have talked repeatedly about how there are so many radio shows in town that have forgotten the purpose of radio and forgotten how to use the medium. And the one thing that he and I are going to do is we're going to remind all of you. We're going to show you what this is supposed to be. Too many people have wandered away from the core of what makes radio special. And we want to lean into that. He comes from a huge radio family, and I'm just a radio nerd. So the chemistry between the two of us, we both have that fire. And one of the things that I appreciate, Jeff and I are great friends. I mean, he could call me in the middle of the night. I'd help him bury a body. I wouldn't even ask him what happened. It doesn't matter. But I enjoy the conversation between the two of us because we can agree to disagree, but it's fun. It's never personal. And there's a lot of energy inside of conversations that radio has been afraid to ask and even address. And Pete, you know me well enough. I don't shy away from those. I have this special talent to find the line and then jump over it. It was a problem when I'm younger, but when he and I get together, it's an advantage. So he holds me and steadies me in so many ways where I would spin out of control. But he's a great counterbalance to what we do inside of radio. And he's got a great mind inside of him, and he has the experience inside of politics that works really well.
A good friend would help you move. A really good friend help you move the body.
Exactly.
All right, so you had to walk away from some other things.
Yeah.
To concert. You want to talk about that, if you would?
Sure. So I ran the think tank at Colorado Christian University for 8 years and then led the Western Conservative Summit, which was a lot of fun. I'm mostly motivated by advancing Christian conservative values, right? And that was a great place to do it for many years. This provides an opportunity to reach the entire city every morning for 4 hours. And then the way the medium's changing with social media, we take that content to the entire nation afterwards. So for me, it provides a bigger megaphone, a bigger microphone, literally. And that was the primary reason this was such a good opportunity to jump at.
I remember you coming in, I'd see you once a week, once every 10 days. You were coming in, I think you were taping.
Yeah, we did a weekend show here for 1 hour.
Yeah. And that's how Jeff and I became friends, is seeing him here and then conversations and things at the Western Conservative Summit. So we've been friendly behind the scenes. I mean, did we go out to lunch? No. But have we seen each other, worked with each other? Yeah, and that was a nice foundation for what they were asking us to do, because it wasn't a cold merger, which makes, as you know, so much harder to bring those two people together.
There is a bridge, or in some cases 2 or 3 bridges, you're going to burn them.
and I will laugh walking away. But yeah, it's going to happen. Yep.
I remember leaving music radio with my mentor, the late, great Bob Lee, pulling away because Mike McEwen, it was, let's see, who was it that called me and said, would you like to try talk radio? And it was John Mullins owned it, Cork and Cartwright. It was legendary. I was called the mother of all talk radio, but it was KWBZ on South Broadway.
That place is so
I remember getting in the car, and those guys were on the porch at the old KLK, where your dad and I worked.
Yeah.
And thinking to myself, what have I just done? Because we had a good show, and we, as we say in the business, we made money. And I said, no, I wanted to go do this. And
that's great.
Not so much you, Billy, but you did that.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it's definitely a change. I'm learning. It's almost like a career change in many ways.
It is.
It is.
So we're learning, but I'm enjoying it, and it gets me up earlier than I've ever gotten up before in my life. But it's a lot of fun.
So when you come in the mornings, do you sit and decide in what direction you're going to go with the show that day? I mean, for instance, tomorrow morning, because we're doing this on a Thursday, I'm filling in for you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Biden all the time.
I know you're gonna have a lot of great content.
Yeah.
If he makes it, it'll be a. We were talking. It could be a scene out of the movie Dave.
It could
where
be.
he just collapses up there and they replace him.
Comes out in those welder's glasses. So, but
Yeah.
those are.
Yeah, it's
You don't have to work on a show like that.
yeah,
You just have.
yeah. This one, the ideas, I follow Jeff's lead, and I think that's very appropriate for the station and for the audience. That he is going to chart the course, and I'm going to do everything I can to help us get there. Because, as you know, in this team, you can't have two lead dogs up front.
No.
You can't. And Jeff is in this show. He is the lead dog, and that's okay, and that's fine, and it's the way that it should be. Especially how we want to and what we're trying to create with the show. It would make no sense to do it any other way. So he decides on what the topics are going to be. He has a spreadsheet that is wonderful for someone that is chaotic as I am, and outlines ideas that he has. And then before the show, we banter a little bit about it. But the one thing that we really try to protect is not to go too deep on any topic, because you don't want to have the conversation twice. And as soon as we have that fire of, we stop and go, no, this is going to be good on the air. And he is in touch and is involved in the ecosystem on a level that I'm not in some areas. And so I like the topics that he brings to the table. I contribute them at times, but I'm going to follow his lead, and I do all the research beforehand. He has the list of stories. I'll read everything. I'll digest everything. I'll do the research that I need to, so that when we turn on the microphone, I can meet him where he needs me to be.
Do you catch heat from people from your past, colleagues and others? Are you catching heat for doing what you're doing?
No, not too much right now. I mean, we work on the. I sent him the spreadsheet the night before, so, and I learned this under Hugh Hewitt. Talk about the news.
Yep.
Just talk about the news. What people are reading, what people are talking about. Go look at the most popular articles, items, those types of things, and that's what we're going to focus in on. But Peter, I see this as a continuation of everything else I've done, whether it's ministry work or working for Rick Santorum, Mitt Romney, the advertising agency I helped run, to the Centennial Institute. It was all motivated by trying to make this world a better place according to the values that I have. And we talked about this with one of our clients the other day, or one of our guests, clients, that you put me in any one of those places, I'm going to be very happy doing what I'm doing, because there's a bigger mission. There's a bigger mission involved. And that's taking a look at a state that is not anything like it was when I grew up, that it has just driven itself into a ditch, and going, I want to try to save this state. And so we're going to advance the issues and the values and the principles that we think can do that.
Do you consider yourselves a Republican radio show?
I do. I'm a Republican. He's not.
No,
so
not
it's
in the least,
conservative values with independent thinking,
Yeah.
which I appreciate that Bill brings. I get to be more of a Republican here than I could at my previous job, because it was a nonprofit. It was a 501c3, so you could actually get in quite a bit of trouble for being that. But I'm a rock-ribbed, MAGA-loving conservative. I worked for Rick Santorum, tried to get him to be the president of the United States. I believe passionately in those values. He's an independent thinker and will challenge those values, but it's based on a foundation of mutual respect and friendship.
What's a jacket rhino?
A jacket rhino?
Yeah, the idea is they're putting the jacket on you. They're saying you're a rhino.
That
What do you do
I'm
with
a
it?
rhino?
What do you do with that?
I don't know. I've spent 20 years of my life trying to get Republicans elected. I don't think that I'd be considered a rhino.
That's
but
the purity test on radio.
yeah.
And here's the thing that'll add into it is that we are not a Republican radio show. We're a conservative radio show with my weirdness. And I think that that is one of the problems. When I talked earlier about how so many radio shows have lost their focus, the purpose of your radio show should not ever be focused on a party. That's not your point. That's not the functionality of what you're doing based on the medium. You're forgetting how to use the medium when you're looking at how do I get people elected. That's not the point.
Driving in here this morning, listening
Yeah.
to you guys, the Trump really won call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh boy.
And
Oh boy.
I said, that's like doing sports talk and talking about Russell Wilson.
Yep.
It's over.
It's a great
Yeah,
point.
it is.
But but in the purity test and the electric Kool-Aid acid test,
Great reference.
you know, what are you going to do? And this is my criticism, that what talk radio has turned into is one angry white guy followed by an angry white guy, followed by an angry white guy, followed by an angry white guy.
Yeah.
And what those angry white guys have done, and you can, they've destroyed radio stations. They've driven ratings off. I mean, whatever normal is, those people go, I'm not going to listen to this. I'm going to go listen to either something else or music or the satellite or whatever, Spotify, what I'm going to do. And it doesn't seem to click
Yeah.
that there's a destruction to something that's taking place that I'm witnessing to this skill or craft or whatever it is that I've loved so much.
Yeah, it's the radio, as you taught me this, and this is going back to when I am like sitting on your knee as a kid in radio, trying to absorb everything because our relationship goes back that far, that you taught me the job in radio is to gather the largest audience possible and then sell stuff to them. That's it. And yeah, that's exactly what it is. And when you decide that your goal is not to gather the largest audience possible and entertain them, you've missed it. And by saying that our goal is to promote a particular party, you can't gather the largest audience possible. It functionally limits what you're able to do and hurts the ability to do radio. So it is the worst thing in the world is to say we are a Republican radio show and we have to get these people elected, because you fail at the core of your job. You shouldn't turn on that microphone if that's what you're trying to do.
Jeff and I, one time in a private conversation, I said, remember, we're not narrowcast.
Yeah.
Yep.
Broadcasting. Yeah, that's exactly right. I on that issue of like the previous elections and going back to there, I think what I bring that's a little bit different and unique is a trained campaign strategist. So for me, it's the next game, right? So you want to go back and watch tape. That's fine. Let's go back and watch tape. Let's talk about what we did right and wrong and how the other side did it, that type of thing. But I'm focused on 2024 in my personal capacity. I'd like to see the right guys win. I want to see the right values and principles and beliefs advanced. But spending, we got into this today on the show where I'm just like, I can't have this conversation anymore. We did so for 3 years. Focus on the next game, and let's go out there and win.
Yeah. And if you focus on the next game and you have that messaging that Jeff is smart about and understands, you don't have to be a Republican show or a Democrat show. If you have the messaging, you can be persuasive without saying, I'm wearing this jersey at this time. Yeah. That's the point in what we're doing. It's a conservative show, not necessarily a political party show.
Gotcha.
Oh, boy.
It has to do with Lauren Boebert.
Oh, good question.
All right.
You're up first.
So...
Hanging on him. Right?
Of
Yeah,
course.
no.
You know how this works.
Look, I was a huge fan of Lauren Boebert from the get-go. Man, what a refreshing politician to have in there. There's a mom that took on Beto, right? Like, you're not taking my guns. Get Scott Tipton out, which, who knew what Scott Tipton did? And nobody knew what Scott Tipton did. So it was really fun. The mama bear was here, right? And I will only say this because of her connection and her openness about her faith, right? She leads with it. It is on her shoulder. And as someone who's a fellow believer with her, when you look at the problems that her family is facing,
Or that she created.
I don't know about the problems she created, but as a fellow Christian and a believer who sees all those problems taking place, I would say this to anybody else, including my best friend: get your own house in order. You got to get your own house in order.
Beetlejuice wasn't her putting her religion on her shoulder.
No.
That was
And
the other
the
shoulder.
problem. And any other pastor or leader of a Christian college or professor at a Christian college, anybody in the faith space at all who got busted acting the way she did would have lost their job. So she leads with her faith, and it's key to her, and I believe it's key. I don't think she's faking it. I think it's central to her. But
I personally think it's a shield.
But I think you gotta look. I've said this to so many politicians, Ken Buck and other ones too. There's no job in politics that's worth sacrificing your family for. There's not a single job in politics, because you can't remember I can't remember who the congressman in CD4 was 3 people ago, 4 people ago. Their memories fade, and you're going to walk away and allow your family to suffer and fall apart and stuff like that. That's where I say to a sister in Christ, really reflect on what you're doing and make sure your family is right before you jump into big civic leadership positions.
Boil that down. What do you think of Lauren Boebert?
I really like Lauren Boebert, and I just wish she would take care of her family first.
Billy?
I think the jump in districts is more of a detriment than it is a positive. I think it looks like you're running away from a fight, and you're also abandoning the constituents that put you there in the first place. I think it creates unnecessary complications and questions inside of the voter's mind. And when we're going through a divorce at the same time, saying the best thing I can do is to pick up my family, move to a different district, and then get a job in which I'm not home all the time, is difficult for me to come to. My advice, if I was sitting down with her today, my advice is step away. And Jeff's been very smart about this. The speaking realm is where she has that chemistry. She has that charisma. She could go out there and she could be very effective on the speakers tour circuit, make the money, be home with the kids, and then 6 years, 8 years. She's young enough. 10 years down the road, she comes back and says, hey, she can make another run at it. Will it work? It may not. But the issue is maybe there has been some reputational rehabilitation there, and she might be a better candidate at that point than I believe she is now. Again, I can be wrong. That'll only be the 7th time I've been wrong today. So, yeah.
Read John O'Hara's The Lost Hurrah, and one of the great political novels of our time. What is the biggest difference between the two of you? What do you argue about the most?
He's sane.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one. You can't argue that.
That works.
Yeah.
But there has to
Some of the social issues. I think transgenderism is probably the biggest debate.
Absolutely.
I think that gender is directly tied to sex, that it's binary. There's not a spectrum. You're either a male or a female. And we got into into this on rhinoceroses and alternate universes.
Yeah, because
that's the big one.
I believe it's a social construct, but the conversation we have about that, even though we are so far apart on the issue, is respectful, and it also allows us to have a conversation that nobody else, not just in Denver, nobody else in the nation is willing to have. I challenge anyone to go out and find a single radio host, let alone a show, that discusses that issue on transgenderism the way that we did, that came to it that openly and honestly, and let both sides have their piece and let it explore. The other big thing is I'm obviously wired a little bit differently, and Jeff, with his conservative nature, is more reserved. I have a very high threshold for embarrassment, and one of the things that he just did recently, we had Ted Harvey on, and we found out it was his birthday. I asked Jeff, and on the air, live, we're going to sing happy birthday to him. I didn't tell him beforehand. Nothing came to it. And the thing for me that I respect more than anything else is that he trusted me. And you know this about teams. He said, okay. I just said, hey, listen, we're jumping out of a plane. And he goes, I don't want to, but let's go. And he grabbed my hand, and we jumped, and we did it together. And the trust that he gave me there meant more than he probably really understands based on a team.
I was called that. The parachute will open.
Yes. Yes.
And there were so many times.
Yes. Trust me. Yeah. And there have been some times where he said, no, I want to go this way, et cetera, with the topic, and I trust him. I trust his instincts because of where he's coming from with that. And he's been right more times than he's been wrong. I can't think of a single time he's chosen the wrong time to switch or the wrong topic. And for someone that is so new, that's remarkable. It's different. It makes me very comfortable.
The most heat you've taken. How long have you been?
That's me.
Yeah. This marks well over a month. But
yeah.
What is the most heat you've taken because I can see the differences where people would be mad at Bill but love you,
Yeah.
and traditionally maybe not like you as much as they like Bill. What's the biggest heat that you've taken?
I probably with Dick Wadhams on the nature of
excellent one.
of Trump.
Yes.
Right. So Dick and I got into it.
If you haven't listened, go back and find that because wow, that was so good.
I was on last Saturday because Wadhams made the circuit. And
Yeah.
Actually, I had to hit the delay.
Yeah. Good.
No, I'm not, I mean, I really,
Yes.
if ever, hit the delay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said to him, and I like Dick immensely, and this isn't Tales Out of School, but I said, what I heard
Yeah. Oh yeah.
was that you got roughed up on talk radio. He expletive deleted.
That's great.
And I had to punch the button, and
Oh, that's good.
and he was.
I don't think that that recognizing the fact that the party's changed and is not. So I grew up in Cherry Hills. I grew up around Jim Nicholson. I grew up around all those guys. I have great, tremendous appreciation and respect for Bill Armstrong, for Wayne Allard, for Bill Owens, for what those guys achieved. What I'm trying to point out is that I was in the room when those types of guys said, we need to stop being country club Republicans and bring in grassroots, blue-collar conservatives. And we went out there and did that. And now the party's controlled by those by those grassroots, blue-collar conservatives. And so recognizing that doesn't mean I'm disparaging or demeaning.
Yeah.
Success since Armstrong left.
Well, that's a fair point. And that's a very fair point. And I was trying to point this out about Dick Wadhams too. He's won. He's won in this state. So the Dave Williams crowd should at least listen to what he's saying. You may not agree all the time, but I've also noticed that there's this dual purity test that's taking place. Where you have a MAGA purity, where you're not MAGA enough, you don't support Donald Trump enough, so we got to kick you out of the party. And then there's on this other side, and it's in the Denver Post every Sunday, that if you like Trump too much, you're really abandoning conservative principles and and the ability to win as Republicans. So you're the problem. We need to get you out. What I'm trying to say is, because we only win when we have more people on the bus than the other guy. So sitting here kicking other people off the bus because they don't, it doesn't make any sense. And I'm naturally a coalitions guy. So in my perfect world, Dave Williams and Dick Wadhams are working together on a strategy to win a city council race.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say. Figure out how to win basic city council races and start there and make more cities look like Aurora and what they're doing. And then we'll start to win in this state. But my first question to Dick Wadhams on our show was, how do we win? And his response was, Dave Williams. And when I asked Dave Williams and those guys, how do we win? It's Dick Wadhams. And he's getting rid of those guys. And so I'm like, just lay out a strategy to win a race against the radical left.
Yeah.
And whoever wins should have more power.
It's a civil war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
goes to you.
No, the thing here is, first of all, I would have put 50 grand down in Vegas that I was the guy that was going to get in the fight first, not him, not this guy. There's no way. So that surprised me. For me, biggest heat I've taken, any of the days that end in Y. You pick it, because that's kind of what I lean into. And I had a conversation with Michael Roberts at Westward, and he was asking me about that idea, how are you going to take the heat? And I said, you don't understand. With my dad and how I grew up, he was not ever rough on me, but he was never going to BS me. And he told me many, many times, you have an underdeveloped sense of fear. You don't see these things sometimes, the danger they are, and sometimes it'll bite you. That combined with a couple of the personality traits, I lean into that. The idea when someone says, you're this and this and this, all right, let's have a conversation about that. That is not something that is going to push me away from the conversation. That's going to draw me in. So when you challenge me, that's where this show is going to live. That's where we are going to have the fire.
Last bit of advice from an old man who did the job.
Please.
There were people that I worked with that I described as they were puppy dogs.
Yeah.
And in the backyard was a circle full of kids. And the puppy dogs ran trying to make every kid happy, and in fact made no kid happy.
Happy, right. Yeah, that's a
And
great
so
point.
put that in the backs of your heads, because if you walk out of here at 10 o'clock in the morning and everybody loves you, you're not doing your job.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Part of this job is to make people at least think, and if they don't like you, so be it. That's part of it.
Yeah.
And leave you with an Alan Berg story. And I'm breaking into the business with Bob Lee. Berg is brought he's a haberdasher and he's a shoe salesman. And a guy takes him down to now legendary KWBZ, gives him his own show. Elvis Presley died. And I'm working mornings on a country radio station. True story, grown men calling, crying. He's gone. Berg's on the air at BZ, said, guy couldn't sing a note.
That's why he's the best.
Up the phone lines
Yep.
into that box. And we later talked about it. You know, I was his traffic reporter. But I remember that morning, and Dusty Saunders used to write a column, and Joanne Ostro, they wrote columns. We read them every day. What did they write about?
Of course.
Berg saying that Elvis, he couldn't carry a tune in a bushel basket.
Yes.
And of course it wasn't
Of course.
what it was, but the point that he had, that he did that. And that's all part of the magic and the love of this business. I tell you what, you guys, I mean, you're holding the line.
Thank you.
To me, it's like I've had this conversation with a lot of other people. You're the last ditch.
Yeah.
I think I want to press on that just a little bit, because I think that we're in a time and space where you have more media consumption than at any point ever.
But there's so much of it.
There's so much of it, which requires a higher standard, right? You've got to press on it. It's not A/B. My son, brilliant kid, advanced in math, all that stuff. The other day we're driving and we hear the Republican debate on NBC. He goes, "What's NBC?" My son's 14 years old, has no idea what that
I think
is.
he's read a paper.
No. But they all want to be YouTube stars. They're all consuming media. So the medium's just changing. The requirements are higher. You got to produce higher. But the way I see this is we're taking 4 hours. We're producing great content. We're putting it out there on social media as well. It's blowing up on social media. So I think you'll see greater engagement, greater awareness of what is happening here at KNUS and the role that we're doing. You just things are just changing. That's all.
Yeah. For me, it is what Jeff is talking about, how the medium has changed. And so many people in my mind have forgotten why radio is special. And we are going to do something that nobody else in Denver is doing and nobody else in the nation is, because in part, I like breaking the rules. That's one of the things that I lean into. I have a natural distrust of authority. That's one of the things I lean into. Yes, it is. And I always want to ask the why. And I think not enough people have the guts or the testicular fortitude to ask the difficult questions. I'm going to have people all the time tell me, stop interrupting, you're not letting them finish. That doesn't matter. This is a conversation, just like right now, we go back and forth. This show is not about speeches. This is going to be about conversations, and we're going to do it on a level. I mean, we're talking everything from spirituality all the way through economics. Nobody else is going to discuss things the way we are, because I'm not afraid, and you don't have the background that he's got.
I have tomorrow morning, then the boys will be back on Monday. I leave you with this. My grandson, who is, again, I think we all speak of our grandchildren.
Oh, yeah.
But his great line to one of his little friends was, and he calls me Pappy, he said, "You Google my Pappy, he's on Wikipedia." and I heard that story, and I went, I didn't even know I was on Wikipedia.
That's great.
I'm afraid of it.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Means the world to
You're
me.
a legend.
You love you to death.
You guys, thank you. This was important. And Mark Crowley and Kelly Michaels, thank you. I get to do the fellow show tomorrow morning, and then I get to do Saturday morning as well. We start the new time, 9 to 1. Take care of yourselves and tell everybody about these guys. They got something going on. Thank you.